So it seems like spring games are coming up for both Ohio State on the 15th and Michigan on the 1st.
Mm-hmm.
April Fool's Day, so I'll be excited to see the fools run around. I'm excited for the spring game. I'm actually going to, try to get tickets, head up there. Obviously, like I said, we've got 5 questions each that we've got. The biggest questions that we're looking for answers for. For Ohio State, I think the first question is pretty obvious. How is Kyle McCord looking? How is Devin Brown looking? I mean, it doesn't get any more simple than that because
biggest question in Columbus.
We got a huge QB battle coming up now that C.J. Stroud is gone.
Is it though? I mean, from everything that I've seen so far, it seems like McCord is the guy that they're running with. I haven't heard too much Devin Brown hype.
I would agree. I would definitely agree with that. Which I mean, that's the way I think it should go anyway. Being that Kyle McCord is 1 year above Devin Brown, and so Kyle McCord has a breakout year, get drafted. Then we got Devin Brown.
I don't think, man, a one and doneer. But yeah, I don't think that Devin Brown's skill set is something that's going to be able to be seen in spring anyway. Like if it does, you may see it a little bit in the spring game when him running around. You might see little
flashes of it, but you're not going to see.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to see what he can bring to the offense. Maybe they see it in scrimmages. Mm-hmm. I would say that'd probably be the closest that you'll be getting. But even then, they're not hitting quarterbacks a lot,
Yep.
So you won't be able to see Devin Brown and what he can offer the team until they're actually playing football.
Yeah, you won't be able to see things like extending the play until some real actual circumstances and some.
Now, in Ryan Day's offense, though, that's not something that is going to be very key. He's going to need to be able to get the ball out on time. He's going to be able to need to make all the throws.
Sure.
So if that's not a strength of his, he's probably not going to beat out Kyle McCord in general. But I think his advantages aren't something that he's going to be able to show a whole lot in spring.
I would agree with that.
So that's why it feels like it's going to be McCord.
Yep. My second question would be, how much time is Jayden Ballard getting? It seems like when I peruse through Ohio State media that Jayden Ballard is getting quite a bit of hype.
It's the guy who's supposed to be taking Julian Fleming's spot.
Supposedly.
I have been unimpressed by Julian Fleming. Like he's just big. He's big.
I think you've been underimpressed for good reason. He hasn't performed to the likes of a Marvin Harrison or a JSN, obviously.
You see that goddamn pterodactyl walk out there, you think, oh shit, I gotta get both of these guys, and then it's like, oh, he's cool.
And I'll stick with him all good. He just hasn't, between injuries and some other things, he just hasn't performed as well as
not a whole lot of separation. He's a big body guy, but it just he's kind of like a tight end playing outside.
Yeah, and from everything I'm hearing, Jayden Ballard is coming for some playing time, and I doubt that he's going to be coming for Marvin Harrison's playing time. So that would lead me to believe Julian Fleming, maybe some slot play or something like that. But we'll see. And I'm also in that same respect looking at Brandon Ennis, who seems to have made his way somewhat into the depth chart. So being a freshman and getting any time would be nice to see. Just to see how our guys develop over time. It's not one of my questions, but I am interested to see how Brandon Ennis does. My third question is, how is the offensive line looking? Guys like Josh Fryer, Donovan Jackson. I mean, obviously Devin Brown is the guy who's going to extend the play for you if need be, but Kyle McCord is not so much that guy. And so we're definitely going to need quite a bit of protection on the outside. And I want my offensive line to look like Michigan's, if I want to be honest with you. I mean, it's a tough task because they are one of the best offensive lines in the country, to be honest.
BIA.
But, when it comes to the trenches, of course I know what BIA means. Oh, that's our thing, not yours. Anyway.
BIA. Is it your thing? You gotta be BIA for it to be your thing.
We are definitely BIA in certain aspects. Just like you guys are BIA in certain aspects. Anyway, but not only from, pass protection, but obviously we've got Travion and Mayan, and we want to keep them healthy. So definitely want to see how the guys on the offensive line are looking. Also on the trenches, on the other side, are any of the guys on the defensive side going to show out in the spring game? Which, like you mentioned before, there's not high stakes in this game. It's not like they're going to go out and try to kill the quarterback for obvious reasons. But, I really expect to see guys like, JT and Mike Hall Jr. and some of those guys start to go to the next level. I mean, I think this is a good enough year for JT to try to show why he should be in the first round, hopefully. So he needs to have a really good year in order to do that.
When I look at both of our defensive lines, I feel like you guys may have the better individual talent with JT. He's probably the most talented player out of both defensive lines. But then I just start looking down the line like, all right, yeah, we're going to put Jack Sawyer back down in the dirt. I'm like, all right, well, it's not a great sign. Like he went from in the dirt, standing up, now back down in the dirt. It seems like you can't find a spot for him to be really productive in.
That's true.
And then I like Mike Hall. He's pretty explosive.
Yeah.
But then you just have to wonder about some of the stuff that you seen from him last year where he was a little inconsistent with where he's going, keeping gap integrity and not getting washed and getting out of position to give up big runs. So
yeah. And he also had an injury last year too. So
individual talent, I would say, is there. It's just looking for depth is what I would say.
I definitely would agree with that. After that's the other side of it. After JT, Jack Sawyer, Tyleik Williams, Mike Hall Jr. Yeah, who are the guys after that? Mm-hmm. Who are the guys who hopefully are to step up, especially once those guys are gone?
Yep.
So
Tyleik Williams is the same thing with Mike Hall. It's like very explosive, but then it's like, all right, but we can count on that guy to not be where he's supposed to be at least half the drive.
Yeah, and that's going to be huge against guys who can run the ball. So. My last question is, who are going to be the standout guys for the DBs? Because last year...
Does that exist in Ohio State? A standout guy in the DB room?
It's definitely a thing. It just hasn't been a thing as of late. I think we are getting guys like Denzel Burke back. And so, Lathan Ransom.
We lost some of my favorites, Tanner and Cam Brown. Love Cam Brown.
Yikes.
That guy was great for Michigan.
Anyway, and we got some new guys coming in, guys like Jermaine Matthews. So I'm looking at the DBs and trying to see what's going on.
You got the guy that y'all got from us, Igbenogsa. Hope he plays well.
Sure.
Hope he plays well.
And I've been wanting to see Sonny Styles step up. So I really hope he...
That's a name I hear a lot, but I just never... I don't think I've ever really seen him on Saturday. So, like, I don't know what to expect.
You've seen him if you've watched the game the whole way through. He was a freshman last year.
Okay.
5-star freshman.
It's like I hear that name pop up a lot when they're talking Ohio State football. We want to see Sonny Styles. I was like, yo, fam, I don't even know what this guy looks like. I haven't seen
Sonny Styles and CJ Hicks are our two 5-stars from last year that ended up being freshmen last year that I want to see for sure. And so, obviously with the linebackers, they've got Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers coming back. And so I don't know how much of CJ Hicks I'm going to see just because those guys are coming back, but hopefully we see a little bit of that. But with the safeties, like you just mentioned, like Cam Brown, Tanner McAllister, some of those guys are gone. So at this level, we should probably be seeing some of Sonny Styles and not when, we're blowing out teams in non-conference. So we'll see what we see from him this year. As far as the depth chart, I kind of mentioned some of these already. Jayden Ballard, I think, is going to take some time at wide receiver. But other than that, Marvin Harrison Jr., Julian Fleming, and Emeka Egbuka, those are going to be the guys. Quarterback, obviously, we don't know for sure, but it seems like everything is leaning Kyle McCord. I think we talked about that a little bit, but I think everything is leaning that way. Running back, I think they're going to start Trey to begin things.
Yikes.
But I think as the season goes on, every season, these past couple seasons, Mayan is going to show and prove why he needs.
I feel like not only Mayan is the stronger back, but Evan Pryor may be the better back too. Evan Pryor is a dog. And getting him back is going to cause some issues for Travion Henderson this year, I think. For sure. Right? He already had a I won't say an issue, but he already had a problem on his hands when Mayan Williams shows that he's a little bit more patient, has the better vision, because I think that's what Alford values in a back. Yeah. Not just the potential to take 160 every 10 runs. You know what I mean? Like, yes, that's great. But what are you going to do for us on 3rd and short where you're getting tackle for loss? Yeah. What are you doing for us when we need 5 yards and you're getting hit for -2? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not what he wants out of a back. And Evan Pryor was much better at doing that before he got injured last spring. Yeah. So I don't know, man. If Travion hasn't gotten better with his vision and his patience, you could see him being the third down back behind Mayan and Evan Pryor toting the rock, because I just don't think now this is year 3. You had the explosive year 1, year 2, you were injury laden, and then even when you were there, it didn't always look great. So he could be struggling for playing time. Well, I guess we'll see how the spring goes. And then not to mention Dallin Hayden, they're not slouches. Right, those guys are coming up and they're getting better too. It's kind of like Travion's had his opportunity already to show that he's the alpha back. Not to mention he's the most talented player in the room. The problem is that there are guys that are behind him talent-wise, that are in front of him development-wise, because they're getting it. They're getting it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Well, also I've heard news that Dallin Hayden has gotten decidedly bigger. So we'll see how that works out for him.
Saw that HGH y'all eating down here.
I don't know what you're talking about, bro. And then I think we'll see Cade Stover, obviously, as our tight end, along with our guys on the line. Guys like I mentioned before, Donovan Jackson, Josh Fryer, Matt Jones.
You guys are replacing the tackles, huh? Yeah, DeJuan and Paris Johnson. So, woo!
Yep.
We'll see very early whether or not that's a problem. Because y'all got Notre Dame, week 4?
Yes. Or week 3.
We shall see. On the road at Notre Dame, brand new tackles. Yeesh.
I think we'll be all right.
Yeesh.
And then on defense, your guys, JT Tuimalau, Mike Hall Jr., Tyleek Williams, Jack Sawyer. And then you'll see Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg again for linebackers. Again, I want to see some time for CJ Hicks and even Cody Simon as well, but we'll see how much we get of that, considering, those are the guys for sure. Denzel Burke, Lathan Ransom, Kai Stokes. Looks like he's going to get some time, along with hopefully Sonny Styles, but we'll see. And then Jair Brown as well. So we got quite a few guys. Oh, and Jermaine Matthews as a freshman. I hope he gets a little bit of playing time, but I think he's going to play the Sonny Style road this year. So we'll see what happens with that.
So what predictions do you have on your team going into the fall? What do you anticipate them taking from spring practices here?
Building confidence for Kyle McCord is going to be key, especially if he's going to be the guy. And so going into, Indiana is our first game, and then we've got a couple of non-conferences. Well, at least one non-conference before we see Notre Dame, I believe. And so that's going to be huge. Mm-hmm. Deciding again with our running back team, along with our offensive line, and seeing how that kind of meshes along with each other, and seeing if we have a really solid rushing attack. And then improving the defense is always a thing for us, at least for the last couple of years. Sure. Just all around improving the defense.
Cool.
But, playoffs, baby.
Yikes.
Big playoff team over here.
This is the last year with 4 teams, so everybody who makes it from here on out is just kind of like sympathy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like sympathy.
Now we need that top 4 spot. So we can get to that national championship this year.
Shall see.
See when we did against Georgia.
We'll see if the other conferences can put forth some undefeated teams. Not just the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah.
To make sure these guys can take their one-loss ass to the Rose Bowl again.
We're not losing one game this year.
Oh, you're going undefeated?
Yep.
Yikes.
We're going into Michigan and taking that game.
You're going to go undefeated? Like you're going to show up to Ann Arbor undefeated?
We're taking the Michigan game.
Yikes.
See, I want to say we have a tough schedule again, but then last year I said the same exact thing, and that schedule ended up garbage.
Okay, you can say the schedule is garbage, but Northwestern was beating y'all Northwestern was beating y'all for a good period of time, and then Penn State should have beat y'all. Penn State should have beat y'all.
Northwestern wasn't beating us. We struggled a lot in that game, but I don't think they were.
Were they up like 10-7 for a while? Or y'all were up 10-7?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you were in a rock fight with Northwestern for a long time. And then
bad weather. But Penn State
should have beat y'all. It should have won.
But James Franklin ain't that guy. So
Jesus Christ.
And now they're going to have to come to Columbus this year. So, things are different.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm not worried about none of that shit. I'm not worried about Notre Dame, Penn State, Wisconsin. I'm not worried about any of that. Y'all can be undefeated. It's just going to make it so much sweeter to crush them dreams 3 years in a row. Oh, my God. Yes, please. Actually, yes. Be undefeated. Be undefeated and come on up to Ann Arbor and get your annual ass tapping. Please do.
Our annual ass tapping?
Yes. That's what it has become.
What happened before 2020?
It doesn't. I don't give a damn about before 2020. We live in 2023.
You've done it twice.
It is annual. Okay. What is the definition of annual? Yearly, right?
Sure.
So for 2 years in a row now, that makes it annual, right?
I don't think 2 times it's not like you can count up on it after just 2 times.
So 3 means we can count on it, right? I just want to make sure that we can set the bar and put it in cement so it doesn't move.
It's not happening this year, so sure.
So yeah, 3 means that it's annual. It's a yearly ass whooping, right?
You guys aren't going to hit 3.
No, I just want to make sure. I just want to establish.
I said yes.
Okay, cool.
But
cool.
You guys
Absolutely.
are going to win a 3rd time. So.
Okay, cool. Gotcha. All right, let's get into the Spring of Champions, shall we?
Ew.
All right, so I got 5 questions going into Michigan Spring Ball that I need answered, and I think we all want them answered. My number 1 is, the way we run the ball, our running backs tend to get nicked and bruised and maybe not losing them for the season like we did with Blake there in game 11 against Illinois. But you can expect them to maybe need a spell. Maybe in some of our weaker Big Ten competition, they don't play as much, that kind of thing. Who's our 3rd running back? Who's the heir apparent? Because chances are we're probably going to lose Blake and Donovan after this year. So who's the heir apparent? Who are we expecting to take the reins over?
Cole Cabana?
It could be Cole Cabana. Early reports are that it may be Benjamin Hall, running back from the same class, early enrollee. CJ Stokes is still there. I really need CJ Stokes to show me something this spring game. Like, I want to see it. I know Mike Hart believes in him the same way he believed in a guy like Benjamin Hall, who wasn't even starting on his team last year. All right, who had slid down the depth chart to, I think, 3rd. And kept his scholarship with Michigan. So if Mike Hart is going to do that, and I know he can develop at an elite level, if he's going to do that and keep his scholarship with him, then I know he still believes in CJ Stokes, was one of the first guys he recruited at Michigan. So I just want to see it. I want to see what he sees. I want to see why he still believes in CJ Stokes. He just has to take that step. I think CJ has some pretty good attributes. He runs with good balance. He has pretty good speed. But similarly to what we were talking about with Travion, he doesn't track his blocks as well as Donovan or Blake. And with the kind of runs that or the kind of blocking concepts that we put together, a lot of traps, a lot of pulls, a lot of double teams. You got to wait for some of that stuff to come off. You may be waiting for a guy to come off a double team and climb to the linebacker, but if you zoom past him too fast, you're going to get hit for a 2-yard gain. Whereas if you were a little bit more patient, you probably could have took it for 15. That's the kind of thing we're looking for CJ. So I want to see it be him. I love the fact that we have Cole Cabana on the roster, pass catching running back, and probably split him out in the slot. I love that we have a bigger back, a bruiser, 228 coming in. That's Benjamin Hall, right? I love the
diversity.
The diversity, yeah. They got different skill sets, and that's cool. But you're going to need an every down back next year, and I'd like to see them start to mature that guy this year. Hoping it's CJ Stokes. Hoping it's him. If not, we got Jordan Marshall and Dylan Tatum coming right fast and hurry. So you better get your ass in check. You better do something. Like, not waiting We're not waiting 3 years to see if you're going to mature into something. You're going to show it. You're going to work hard. You're going to do it now, or the guys are going to pass you up. It's meritocracy. Probably the only place in America where it exists. College athletics. Because even when you talk about professional athletics, that's not so based on who's the best. It's based on who's making the most.
Yep, Cam Newton will tell you that.
Oh, number 2, the corner rotation. So we've heard a lot about Amarion Walker being an alien, 6'3", runs a I don't know. They were talking about his cone drill, and when he ran it, it would have been one of the highest times or the lowest times at the combine history or whatever. I don't know anything about that shit, but I know Amarion Walker is fast as hell.
So you're telling me that Amarion can dance, sing, and play football?
Amarion with an A.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Relax, fam. But yeah, man, I like the prospect of having a freak athlete, 6'3", playing corner, twitchy athlete. Love it. I'd like to see it though. Right? Like, a lot of talk. And to his credit, a lot of the guys that Jim Harbaugh hyped up last spring ended up being guys. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, those guys ended up doing some stuff. Some of them didn't. Darius Clemens didn't really see the field. Tyler Morris didn't really get to see anything until the end of the season. So I think that may be the trend. Guys that you hear defensively that get bigged up are probably going to have an impact. Offensively, maybe they'll have a bit of a ramp up. He told me Ronnie Bell was going to be this, that, and the third. Ronnie Bell had a good season. I don't know if it was what Jim Harbaugh was telling me. He told me he's faster than he was before he tore his ACL. I don't know. Still fast, though. Sub 4.5 guy. I think high 4.4s. Yeah, I want to see what that ends up being for him. If he can legitimately play, field or boundary, or if he's going to be a guy who mixes in at nickel or mixes in at field or boundary. I want to see if he's going to be a starter, because I'm of the mindset that Jayden McBurrows is probably going to be the opposite starter of Will Johnson. He's more experienced. We've seen him tackle. I've never seen Amarion Walker make a tackle. So I don't know what he's going to be making run fits. I don't know. I know a lot more of that from Jayden McBurrows. I don't know if he can cover better than Amarion Walker. So that makes it a little bit interesting. I don't expect to see Will Johnson in the spring game. It says that he's been walking around in a walking boot. So he's a little nicked up here. So I don't expect them to push him, to come back. That he's going to be a preseason All-American probably. So I wouldn't rush it. Plus, you need to flesh out these other guys and see what they can do. Jermaine Green is still there. Jayden McBurrows is still there. Cameron Calhoun, guy who committed on his Ohio State visit to Michigan. That guy's going to be there. Jair Hill, number 1 athlete out of the state of Illinois, I believe. So you got guys that you need to see play. So it doesn't really worry me if Will's not here for that, because we know what he can do. And we know what Sanders still can do, obviously. So
you mentioned Amarion Walker not being the best at tackling.
I don't know if he is. I just haven't seen him do it.
Maybe he's just more interested in playing.
Okay, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. All right, question number 3. Who's our backup quarterback? So now, early reports are saying that Jack Tuttle has come in and kind of edging his way into being that backup, the transfer from Indiana.
Hey, I was going to say, I know that name.
It makes sense because, he's a 6th-year player, right? He's played a lot of football. Has been a starter. Has played at multiple stops, multiple offenses. It kind of makes sense. Here's my thing, though. I have had the sneaky suspicion that Davis Warren is going to be a starter after J.J. McCarthy. Davis Warren was one of the highest rated college quarterbacks in the country before he was diagnosed with leukemia. I think it was some type of cancer. But, before that happened, he beats it, comes to Michigan as a preferred walk-on, earns a scholarship. I think Davis Warren can play. Now, Whether or not he beats out Jack Tuttle on a grad transfer year, that's not going to make a determination for me because Jack Tuttle's never going to start at Michigan, barring some disaster. So even if he beats him out in the spring, it's not really going to tell me too much about what happens with Davis Warren. If Davis Warren is still holding back these young guys that are coming up, Alex Orji, Jaden Denegal, probably Jaden Davis, I think he's going to start. And the interesting thing with that will be is that if we get that guy in, he could be that one and done guy that you're talking about, akin to Kyle McCord. If he's that guy. I like Davis Warren. I think he's mobile. He has a live arm. He makes good decisions with the football. Accurate. Ball comes out quick. There's a lot to love about Davis Warren. And again, had this guy not gotten sick, probably wouldn't even be at Michigan. Probably would have went to one of these quarterback schools and thrown the ball 50 times. Because that's who he was trending to be. So who is the backup quarterback? That's going to be an interesting thing. Who gets the second string snaps?
Every time you mention orgy, I think of RG3 saying there's an orgy in the end zone.
Yikes. That man's a menace. This is an interesting one. The edge rotation. So we've got quite a few guys at our outside linebacker position who are going to be vying for time this year. Braden McGregor, Jalen Harrell, Derek Moore is another name there. Isaiah Stewart, transfer from, or Josiah Stewart from Coastal Carolina, is turning heads early, looking like a freak of nature. There's a lot of guys out there on the edge and not unlimited snaps. So I'm really interested to see what comes of this. Still got Julius Welshoff is still there. I think TJ Guy transferred though.
Braden McGregor was your guy last year, right?
He kind of came on at the end, had some great plays in the Ohio State game. Mike getting injured at the end of the year kind of gave him some more opportunity. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys there, and I mean a lot of good guys, a lot of highly rated, a lot of 4s, 5 stars, and then that's not even adding the guys that we got coming in the fall that are going to be added to that, like Eno Etta, who was a high 4-star, one of the highest rated guys in our class last year. So there's going to be a lot of guys vying for time at that position, which means there's going to be a lot of competition, which I love. Which I absolutely love, and I'll give an idea of how I think it's going to shake out here in a second when we do the depth chart. But that's going to be one of the most competitive rooms on the team. I think that one, probably receiver and cornerback, will be some of the most competitive for minutes there.
Hopefully, receiver is good for you guys because, I mean, competition
breeds good play, and so that
you definitely need that.
On one hand, I don't want anybody to transfer or not see the field, just because we don't have the snaps and they're kind of wasted. That's kind of how I feel about Alex Orji, but at the same time, it's like that having a guy like Alex Orji, a project quarterback, 6'4", 220 pounds, can throw the ball a mile, and he's buried on the depth chart. That kind of thing pushes the people in front of him. Because if you're sitting up there, if you're Jack Tuttle or Davis Warren, you're like, hey, I mean, I could mess around and not even get the garbage time snaps if I'm lacking. Mm-hmm. It keeps guys aware. It keeps them alert. It keeps them always trying to get better. Last question I got is, what type of offensive balance will we have this year?
It's a really good question for you guys because it's mostly run.
I mean, that's what we have been the last 2 years. And this is the most loaded in the Michigan offense has been really since my days of watching Michigan football. It would have to be. You're returning your number 1 receiver at Cornelius Johnson. You're returning your number 3 receiver and probably one of the fastest players in the Big Ten, Roman Wilson. You've got Darius Clemens, who was a high 4-star, former 5-star flip from Clemson, who didn't even get to see the field last year because you had so much wide receiver depth. You've got Donovan Edwards, who everybody likes to anoint as the best running back on the roster. I don't think so, but insanely explosive athlete, great pass catcher, was just shy of giving you 1,000 yards last year. Blake Corum gave you 1,500 yards in 11 games and almost 20 touchdowns. Enough said.
And could have been a Heisman finalist. J.J. McCarthy, returning quarterback, 3,000 yards just about, almost, and 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And he also waves at Iowa kids when his coach doesn't.
Doesn't matter. You got Colston Loveland at tight end. You got Indiana transfer.
Jack Tuttle.
No. Barner, AJ Barner, the tight end. You've got a Joe Moore, a winning returning line. You still have got Trente Jones, Carson Barnhart, Trevor Keegan, Zach Zinter. You just need a center. Oh, you got one in the transfer portal who was also on the Remington list last year, in Nugent. So absolutely stacked. Not to mention, you got 2 returning tackles, and then you picked up 2 more in the transfer portal, Darius Henderson and Miles Hinton. Absolutely stacked. This team looks like a team that should be in the national championship. So, with all of that, how do you make sure you keep everybody involved, everybody engaged, without losing your identity? Because, yeah, do I want to throw the ball more? Abso-fucking-lutely. Yes. Do I want to lose? You know what teams did to us last year? All the way through, pretty much till I would say, I don't think they actually really broke from it. Teams almost exclusively had their strong safety within 5 to 7 yards of the line of scrimmage all year.
For good reason.
All year, right? Still got the yardage. Still did it, right? We banged it out. I don't want to lose that. I don't want them to stop doing that. I want you to put yourself at a natural disadvantage to our passing game. I want you to do that. Every single week, week in, week out. I want to know exactly how you're going to play us and what we need to do to beat it. I don't want there to be any variance in how. No. Play us the same way. Bring that safety down here in that box so that we can play with a light secondary week in and week out. Just got to get better at executing.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know that you're going to see that as much this year for the simple fact that the Ohio State game.
Okay. Don't. Then play us with a light box so we can run for 400 yards again. It's pick. That is the type of dynamic I want to have, the pick your poison. But you don't get that without establishing it.
And your receivers have to execute.
And the receivers have to execute.
They
right?
can't be dropping passes. And
our passing game will never be the type of passing game that will drop back 40 times and let them get 500 yards. Not to say that we can't get to that yardage. It's just going to come from execution. It's going to come off of play action. It's going to come off of when we need to run 2-minute drill at the end of a quarter. As long as we execute, I feel like our offensive balance will be there. It could be as close to 50-50 as it has been with Jim Harbaugh. But you got to execute. Have to execute. Can't have those deep balls that clink off your face mask. Can't have the ones that are, it should have been a lob and you threw it like a dart. Can't have them. And I think now that we have a whole spring of JJ working with the receivers and getting the timing down, because he was hurt. He didn't throw last season. Didn't throw last spring. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping this entire offseason of him getting that timing down will help with a lot of that.
We shall see.
All right, so let's get into what I expect from the depth chart on the offensive side. Obviously, JJ is QB1. QB2, I would expect it to be Tuttle. I think a 6th-year guy coming in and not starting over a walk-on guy like Davis Warren. Now, let me preface this. If Davis Warren starts over Jack Tuttle, I think he starts after JJ. No doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind.
If he's that good to go over.
To beat out Tuttle for the backup, then yeah, he's going to start. Regardless of what 5-star quarterback comes in behind him. Because that guy will be a freshman. He'll start at least 1 year. But I think it'll be Tuttle. He's got too much experience. He's a war-hardened veteran at this point. Running back, obviously, Blake Donovan. Third running back, I'm picking Stokes. It very may well be Cabana or Hall. Right now, I'm going to say it's going to be C.J. Stokes. I think he's going to take the step.
I'm picking Cabana because I don't think C.J. Stokes got that dog in him.
Anyways. Either way, it spells trouble for you guys. But
I mean, you guys still have Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, so that portion of it doesn't matter right now.
Receiver, I do expect Roman Wilson to stay in the slot. I know a lot of people have theorized on maybe he might step outside and they'll open it up for maybe Tyler Morris. I think what the layout most likely will be Cornelius outside along with Darius Clemens. Either Darius Clemens or Christian Dixon is another candidate to play out there outside. High 4-star guy who hasn't been able to see the field, right? But it's probably going to be Darius Clemens because that's who's gotten the most talk out of the spring, at least to start. And then inside you'll have Roman Wilson and maybe Tyler Morris. Tight end, I think is going to be Colston Loveland. The only thing is you'll get a lot of tight end rotation because I don't know how much better Colston Loveland's gotten better at blocking. And that's his only knock right now. A.J. Barner is probably, or at least at the end of last season, was a much better blocker than Colston Loveland was. So I could see him getting a lot of time or being the main tight end in a lot of sets. But we got to see what he's done, trench-wise, being at Colston. Offensive line. So I do expect for Nugent to start over Greg Crippen and Raheem Anderson. What?
Crippen.
It's not spelled that way.
I know it's not. It's still funny.
But I think it gets interesting when you get to the exterior of the offensive line. Obviously, Keegan and Zinter are going to start. It gets interesting when you start talking about the tackles because you got 4 guys, all of which started at some point last year and have experience and are pretty highly rated. So you got Trente Jones and Carson Barnhart were the guys that were here last year. And then you've got the Darius Henderson and Miles Hinton that came last year, that came from other schools in the transfer portal. The Darius Henderson is getting one of those spots for sure. 6'7", over 300 pounds, was all conference at Arizona State. He's getting one of those tackle spots. If it were me, Trente Jones would get the other one. He's the more athletic. He's the better puller. He struggled with some pass pro sets, again, early on in the season last year, first year starting. I think Barnhart is a little bit more stout in pass protection, but I also don't think he gives you the pop or the athleticism in the running game. And so if I had to choose for a right tackle, I would choose the better athlete, and that would be Trente Jones, which leaves Miles Hinton and Carson Barnhart to be your backup tackles. What you have here now with the depth on the offensive line, you have the potential to be able to march out 2 starting offensive lines. Imagine a team going on a 10-play, 90-yard drive, running the ball most of the time on you. Quick turnover, you give them the ball right back, and they march out a fresh offensive line. Like a whole new 5 to do the same shit. Like, that's not trench warfare. That's trench abuse. So I'm salivating at the potential of that because they could actually do that within games to put their entire backup offensive line in and it'd be just as good. No drop off. My goodness. What a machine. That sounds like
wishful thinking, but
Okay. I mean, but it's there though. We've got starters. We've got 2 starters at almost every position. It's getting nasty. It's getting nasty, and I love it. Okay, so that's offense. Defensively, let's start with I said edge was going to be one of the most competitive rooms. The linebacker room. Let's start there. So you've got returning starters, Michael Barrett, which was all conference linebacker, as well as Junior Colson. Then you have a freshman All-American in Ernest Hausman who transfers in, who looks to be a stud early on in spring camp. Then you have a guy who was lost for the season at the beginning last year, who was a starter in 2021 in Nikhai Hill-Green. Beautiful problem to have, but it's only 2 linebacker spots in Jesse Minter's defense, or at least how he has it set up right now. If I had to bet, see, here's the problem. I think Michael Barrett played the mic most of last year. He's your leader, and he came back for a 5th year. I don't see Mike not starting, but at the same time, the 2 most talented linebackers out of those 2 are Colson and Hausman. But then you're talking about setting down a 5th-year senior, 2-year starter in Michael Barrett, who led us in tackles last year, I believe. If I had to pick, I think it's going to be Hausman and Colson. They're the most athletic. They're the best athletes. I think those are the 2 best. But then you got the same thing that you can do with the offensive line. Okay, you 2 get a series, and then we're putting Mike and Nikhai in, and I don't think we're going to drop off all that much. You have 4 starters legitimately inside. Beautiful. Beautiful. But Colson and Hausman would probably be my starters. Probably. Even though Nikhai Hill was playing equally, if not better, than Colson in 2021. So it's a toss-up. Legitimately. Toss-up. Okay, moving on from linebacker. Corner. I expect Will Johnson to be sitting. If he's in a walking boot, I don't expect him to push him to play. So I think it will be McBurrows and Walker on the outside to start. Let's see here. Nickel obviously will be Sammer still. Safeties. Even though Moten's coming back, I'm sure he's worked out some of the kinks that he had last year. I still expect it to be Makari Page and Rob Moore to start at safeties, respectively. Defensive line, obviously we got Chris Jenkins in there, who is up over 300 pounds now. Mason Graham will be starting opposite him at 3. Edge, oof. This one's tough because this is the one I think that has the most discrepancy in skill set in terms of defensive positions. You've got a guy like Jalen Harrell, who's just a good all-around linebacker. He sets the edge well. He can cover. He can drop into coverage. He can even get in there and rush the passer from time to time. I think he's the one guy I think that has the best chance to start the most games because he has the most diverse skill set. But then you look at Brayton McGregor, who's a freak. He's 6'6". He's up over 260. Can run. I think he has the best moves in terms of pass rush. He has the best go-to move. That's not a bull rush. But then again, I haven't seen Josiah Stewart. I have no clue. Give me Jalen Harrell and Brayton McGregor to start, with heavy doses of Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart. Heavy doses. To the potential of them maybe usurping one of those 2 starters later in the season. Because I think Derek Moore is going to be a guy, and Josiah Stewart looks like a guy as well. And I believe that is it for the depth chart. So my predictions going into, summer camp and fall practice, I think JJ is going to take another step, not just in terms of command of the offense, but physically. He looks huge. He looks a lot bigger than he did at the end of the season. If he can continue to put on some poundage, maybe get to... He was playing at 193. If he can get to 210, 212, a healthy 212, it's not just like bad weight. It's mostly muscle. Man, I Because you need some of that soft weight too. You need some of that soft tissue for impact and stuff like that. So I don't want him to be 100% muscle. I mean, that would be optimal, but that's not. It's not realistic. Gaining that much weight in that short amount of time. So some of that soft weight will probably help him take maybe a little bit more pounding in the running game. You know, we'll see.
And on social media when his dad tries to touch his girlfriend.
Anyways, that's one of the predicts. Michigan is going to head into this season with another elite defense, another top 10, top 5 total defense. They have so many guys that they can march out there that they need. We have young guys that we flipped in the class 2 years ago that I don't even know if they're going to play. Keon Sabb, Zeke Berry, Miles Pollard. I don't know when we're going to see those guys. That's how deep we are currently. So I'm extremely excited. I can't wait to watch the game next week and see the guys play and see who's popping, see who's making an impression. It should be an exciting spring for sure for both teams. Got any more thoughts on your guys or my guys or the future Big Ten champions?
The Ohio State Buckeyes?
Well, I left it ambiguous. I hope you weren't going to put your name on it, but I don't think it's going to be you.
Well, I think we'll be filling in that blank at the end of the season.
Apparently, people think it could be neither one of us, and it might be Penn State.
Those people are high on crack.
I think that's a troll. I think that's an absolute troll. I don't think anyone thinks that James Franklin is going to beat Ohio State and Michigan or even one of those teams this year.
You got a better chance of Dylan Raiola turning around Nebraska.
Like I don't think they legitimately believe that Penn State's going to do it. I don't think you believe that.
They shouldn't.
I don't think you believe that. Like the things that hurt Penn State the most last year, beef in the middle, really just trench play in general. Consistent quarterback play. Now, if you think that's going to change in one season for both things, not just one, but both,
it can change for one thing, considering.
You're changing your quarterback, so you can get a bit more consistent play out of Drew Aller than you were getting out of Clifford. It's tough to say that Clifford was a 4-year starter.
He was a multi-year starter. He was like 5 or 6.
Well, no. He's been in college 5 or 6. I'm saying he's starting for 4 years. So it's like. You can say that, but you're saying that this second-year player is going to be better than a 4-year starter in his first year starting.
Especially with the coaching
around him. It's a lot to ask. Also, I heard James Franklin on the podium post-game of the Michigan game last year saying that they needed to recruit bigger guys. I don't know if they got all the bigger guys that they needed to recruit for the defensive line and offensive line this year, but I don't think that's how recruiting works.
And they lost a star DB.
You don't go from giving up 400 yards on the ground, 400 yards on the ground, and just we'll lift weights in the summer and we'll get better, and we'll bring in a freshman who's slightly bigger than you, or maybe just a little bit underneath you, but he has a higher ceiling, so we'll be able to coach him and get him ready for next season. Come on. I don't think so. But it could happen. We'll see.
Penn State's lost a lot of people who were good for them last year, and replacing that is going to be a tough task for them. So how you think
replacing
that
Joey
Penn
Porter
State,
Jr. on defense, I mean? That's a thing. It's a thing.
So how you think that they're just going to up and win the Big Ten, and their coach has never done it?
Well, he's done it once.
Once.
Did it one time.
In his how many years?
Almost 10.
Okay. I just don't see how you jump to that conclusion so easily. 8 or 9 years. That's all. Especially when Buckeyes look good, Michigan looks good. I don't see it happening. But
I'm guessing that most of the college football fans, or at least a good portion of them that watch House Divided with us, are either Ohio State or Michigan fans. What did you think about the breakdowns that we gave? Also, if you've got a Big Ten team that didn't get mentioned here, I didn't think we didn't do really a roundup, but give us your thoughts on your team's spring practices in the comments below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Come back every week for another House Divided episode.
Do that unless your team is Nebraska.
you can come. You can bring the fighting Raiolas over here. I don't care. The fighting rules.
Anyway, our last video on college football was on. It wasn't the top 10, was it?
It was on. Feldman's top 10 turning. Oh no, it was on the coaches.
Coaches, yes.
Yeah.
That terrible coaching list. So make sure you check out our reaction to that. And then make sure that you subscribe. Like you said, we like to talk about college football quite a bit on the channel.